Hello and welcome to Asia Newsweek. I'm Yvonne Yong. Together we'll cover the top stories in the region and go beyond the headlines for the stories you might have missed. To Indonesia first, where Pope Francis has celebrated Mass with more than 80,000 Catholics. It's the first leg of his four-nation tour in Southeast Asia and the Pacific. He's visiting Papua New Guinea, Timor-Leste and Singapore as well. The 87-year-old pontiff wrapped up his trip to the world's largest Muslim-majority nation by visiting a mosque to promote tolerance. Indonesia correspondent Bill Birtles filed this report from the stadium where Mass took place.
This is the culmination of the Grand Mass. 60,000 people in this stadium, another 25,000 people in an adjacent arena, here to see Pope Francis on the first papal visit to Indonesia in 35 years. And there was a tremendous roar earlier when he first entered this stadium in an open-air Pope-mobile, because over the past few days he's largely been seen in a wheelchair. The pontiff is 87, he is frail, but he appeared to be quite energetic, greeting the worshippers, and he delivered a homily encouraging Indonesian Catholics to embrace fraternity, embrace camaraderie with Muslims and Hindus and people of other faiths in this nation.
I do feel goosebumps when I saw him pass by in front of me.
It is great. We are very happy to have him here. Very happy.
Earlier, he visited Southeast Asia's largest mosque, and that's where he said Christians and Muslims can work together to combat extremism and also to combat other common challenges, things like climate change.
We take on responsibility to address the serious and sometimes dramatic crises that threaten the future of humanity, such as conflicts, and also the environmental crisis, which is an obstacle to the coexistence of peoples.
Bill Birtles there. Well, let's stay with the story. I'm joined by Erwin Renaldi from ABC Indonesia. Now, Erwin, the Pope has been promoting religious tolerance, as we've heard from Bill, but how have the media been covering his visit, and what has the reaction been from Indonesians?
That's actually a very interesting question, Yvonne, because the Indonesian media headlines not only focusing on the message of the Pope, but it's more also about his modesty and also his being portrayed as humble. For example, the moment he arrived, like people on social media and even Indonesian media did breaking news focusing on the car that he was driven in, which it's a very common car among the middle class. So instead,
what car was it?
Oh, it's a Toyota Innova.
Okay.
So it's not really like other world leaders or even Indonesian politicians, because they always have like a luxurious car and bulletproof and sitting at the back, right? But the Pope is actually sending message how humble he is by sitting next to the driver with the a window full open and then waving to the people. And if we have like a photo here, we can see also the Indonesian media focusing on his watch. See, as you can see, that's being said. The watch of the Pope is very cheap, and it's very interesting. See, like something. Small details like that becoming the focus on the Pope and becoming like the talk of the country on how humble and modest he is.
Well, why is the media and our Indonesians focusing on this particular aspect? What's the narrative behind, highlighting that the Pope is humble and lives simply?
Well, the simple answer would be because the flaunting of the wealth, of the rich by either politicians, celebrities, and officials. And for example, last year, at least there were 4 officials got caught by displaying their wealth, their luxury cars, branded bags, expensive watches, and thanks to Instagram, the tax office and also the Indonesian anti-corruption bodies did an investigation after their post went viral. So I feel like the Indonesian people is longing for officials or leaders who are very humble, who have dignity, not showing their wealth, because also it's very I would say not offensive, but you know, when there is like a very big or stark gap between the rich and the poor in Indonesia, so this is something that they want to see from their leaders, like a best example from their leaders.
So good to get your insights, Erwin. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Let's take a look at more headlines now. At least 13 people have died after Tropical Storm Yagi hit the Philippines. Rescue teams continue to search for those reported missing after people were swept away in landslides and floods. Storm warnings have been issued as the inclement weather forces schools and government offices in the capital Manila to close. Meanwhile, severe flooding has also hit parts of southern India as the country experiences higher than average rainfall this monsoon season. Drone footage has captured the extent of damage in the city of Vijayawada as people waded through floodwaters and carried out rescue operations with inflatable boats. Heavy rains also battered India and Pakistan's coastal areas along the Arabian Sea, forcing thousands from their homes and killing at least 28 people. African leaders have converged in Beijing for triennial talks with China, promising more investment in exchange for better access to raw materials. 50 nations are represented at the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation. The summit presents opportunities for projects in African nations, with China their biggest lender and investor. Between 2006 and 2021, China's investment in Africa exceeded 280 billion Australian dollars, helping to fund major infrastructure projects on the continent. Many nations attending this year say their ties with China will get stronger.
Africa needs to come of age and learning the lessons of China. We also understand the importance of China in maintaining or assuring global peace, stability and security.
It's an occasion when both China and Africa share the challenges which we face, the successes which we are scoring together, because we are all determined to have a future that uplifts the lives of our people.
We look forward to FOCAC all the time. I want to assure you that we are reliable friends and we will work together at the bilateral level and also at the multilateral levels.
Some Chinese investments in Africa have been met with resistance at the local level in many countries, especially regarding environmental issues. Associate Professor Lauren Johnston from the University of Sydney's China Studies program says the summit is all about diplomacy.
A lot of it is about signalling. When Japan, when France, when Russia, when they have their Africa summits, they don't get as many African leaders attending. So it's definitely a signal of influence and a gathering. You know, you don't often get that many, except African Union summits. It's not that common to have so many people clustered and able to hold lots of bilaterals. And I think an advantage of the format is, you know, Africa's rich in quite small countries, and having several leaders there, you know, from similar regions does allow China to push some sort of cross-country infrastructure projects.
There's been another flare-up in tensions in the disputed South China Sea, with the Philippines and China blaming each other for a collision between Coast Guard ships. Video shows the two vessels colliding near the Sabina Shoal, some 140 kilometres off the coast of the Philippines. It's the fifth clash in a month, as the long-running dispute heats up over various atolls and zones in the sea. Beijing claims almost the entire South China Sea as its territory. A former Philippine mayor accused of spying for China has been arrested in Indonesia after being on the run for weeks. Alice Guo has been accused of protecting online casinos, a front for scam centres and human trafficking syndicates. Now, she's denied those allegations. Philippine authorities have pursued her across 4 countries since she disappeared in July. Indonesian officials say they're organising for Ms. Guo to return to the Philippines. Russia's president has made a 2-day visit to Mongolia. It's his first trip to an International Criminal Court member state since the body issued a warrant for his arrest. As an ICC member, Mongolia was obliged to arrest Vladimir Putin when he touched down. Instead, he was given the red carpet treatment. Military guards were seen filing through the capital streets on their way to a formal ceremony in the central square. A small number of anti-war protesters were arrested ahead of the proceedings. Ukraine says Mongolia's failure to detain Mr. Putin is a heavy blow to the international criminal law system. The Russian president was in the country for talks likely to focus on a new gas pipeline connecting Russia and China. To India's northeastern state of Manipur, where there's been more deadly violence between the region's ethnic groups. Police allege a drone attack was launched by Kuki militants, with local media reporting 2 people dead and 12 others injured. The state government has formed a probe to investigate the incident. The Métis and minority Kuki communities have been clashing since May after a controversial court decision over economic benefits. At least 220 people have been killed and more than 60,000 displaced due to the fighting. It's been nearly 4 weeks since the brutal rape and murder of a trainee doctor in India's West Bengal state rocked the country, bringing a new wave of protests over sexual violence against women. In the city of Alipurduar, demonstrators, including affiliates of the BJP, were met with tear gas and water cannon as clashes broke out with police. Meanwhile, junior doctors have continued to stage sit-ins on the streets of Kolkata. Set up on rugs in the middle of the road, they clapped and chanted through the night to demand justice.
We are doctors. We are used to long hours in the operating theatres without food or sleep, so we will stay here until our demands are met.
The grand opening of a discount shop in Pakistan hasn't quite gone as planned. DreamBazaar offered a 50% store-wide discount as an opening sale, but within hours of the shop opening, it was swarmed by bargain hunters. Some stole clothing and broke glass in the rush, which left the store too damaged to reopen the next day. Pakistan's annual inflation did fall to 9.6% at the end of August, the country's lowest rate in nearly 3 years.
The owner posted that he wanted to do something good for the people, but there were some people who would not come with good impressions and good intentions. They damaged things, they looted clothes and damaged main entrance glass too. So much damage has been done.
Well, time for some sport now. Let's turn our attention to the Paralympics with reporter Madeline Lo-Booth. Now, Maddie, there have been some incredible performances these past couple of weeks. What have been some of the highlights?
Yeah, what an amazing 2 weeks, Yvonne. First, let's take a look at swimming, where Paralympic heavyweights China have had some huge wins that's even seen them dominate the entire podium. In the men's 50-metre backstroke S5, China took all 3 medals, with Yuan Weiyi taking gold, Guo Jincheng silver and Wang Liqiao bronze. China also clinched a clean sweep in the women's 50-metre backstroke S5. Here you can see gold medalist Lu Dong, second place He Shengao and third place Lu Yu embracing each other, just absolutely elated on the podium together post-win.
And some great results in wheelchair fencing, especially for Asian countries.
Yeah, some really riveting performances, especially by Thailand's Saesuni Jana, who faced off against China's Rong Shao in the women's foil wheelchair fencing category B and the women's sabre category B, with the 50-year-old from Chiang Mai taking home gold in both. She's truly a Paralympic veteran. This was her 6th time at the Games. Back in 2004 in Athens, she was the first female Paralympian to win gold for Thailand. So to be performing at this elite level for that long, it's really a massive achievement.
It really is. Talking about massive achievement, India, I understand, has won its first ever gold in para-archery.
It's been a great time for India in the Paralympics this year. It's been one of their best performances so far. In para-archery, Harvinder Singh took gold in the men's individual recurve open competition. A great result for the man responsible for India's first ever medal in para-archery, which he secured at the last Paralympics in Tokyo. Also representing India in para-archery, Sheetal Devi, who's become quite a sensation online. She was the only female armless archer in this year's competition. The 17-year-old was born without arms and shoots with her feet. And while she didn't win a medal in her individual event, she did secure bronze alongside archery partner Rakesh Kumar in the mixed compound open event. So definitely someone to keep an eye on next time round at the 2028 Los Angeles Paralympics.
Wow, some amazing achievements there. Thanks, Maddie.
Thanks, Yvonne.
Filipino tribal tattoos, also known as batok, were nearly lost in the late 19th century, but artists determined to keep the culture alive are reviving the practice. Jan Villalon looks into the history of these tattoos and what they mean to those who practice the art form.
The name batok comes from the word which means to tap and to hit. So it's the process and the act of hitting.
So across the Philippines, there are varieties or wide practices of tattoo. We were colonized by Spain, but there's already a concept of imprinting in our skin even before they came. The warriors, the kings, used to have their tattoos as a symbol of their status.
In fact, their tattoos were so prominent that when the Spanish first arrived to the islands in the late 16th century, they referred to the indigenous people as Los Pintados, or the Painted Ones. Traditional practices and customs varied across the islands, with the batok designs from the tribes of Luzon distinct from those of other regions like Mindanao or the Visayas. But despite the long history of tattooing, colonial influences eventually saw the practice outlawed, and in some tribes, the art was lost altogether.
Although the Spanish and later the Americans civilized most of the Philippines with Western customs, isolated pockets of the past survived. The Bontoc Igorots, for example, survived the tidal wave of Roman Catholicism that rolled over most Filipinos. The mountains insulated them against outside influences that could seriously challenge their traditional way of life.
In the north of the Philippines, ethnic groups like the Bontoc, Ifugao, Ibaloy, and the Kalinga carried on the ancient traditions, with master tattooists passing on their knowledge. Today, the most renowned of them is Wangod, usually referred to as Apo, a term of respect.
Apo Wangod is probably the last of the tattooists from her tribe. She has brought this art to the mainstream, to the global audience, and at the same time promoted our culture.
Apo Wangod, said to be 107 years old, learned the skill from her father, and for decades, she was believed to be the last of the Mamba Batoks from her Kalinga tribe. She's since trained her grandnieces, who will continue her legacy. Now, thanks to her work, and with the help of social media, batok has steadily gained international recognition.
It's not just a simple tattoo in our skin. It's actually more than that. It is an attachment to our own heritage as part of our culture and history.
And these roots are shared across Asia and the Pacific, from the seafaring Austronesian ancestors whose cultural influence spread across Micronesia, Polynesia, and Southeast Asia.
A lot of Filipino tattooists and Islander tattooists share a common knowledge and bond through the culture. Our common ancestors that we shared traveled through the Polynesian islands thousands of years ago, and I believe that's part of the reason why a lot of the patterns and motives cross over and they relate. They even look at, it's quite similar the way it's done. One of my passions apart from tattooing is Filipino arnis, and I feel that the mindset, the rhythm, like the tapping, when you're practicing with the sticks, blocking, when it comes to martial arts and tattooing, they're very much like one.
The feeling of batok, even the sound itself, the sound is very spiritual.
Though modern needles have replaced the traditional citrus thorn, the modified batok tools are still mostly made from natural resources.
The bamboo itself, to me, it symbolizes strength and resilience. It's a part of almost all Filipino craft making. We use it in weaving, weapons making, tools, building houses. It's really, the heart and core of the art itself. It pretty much grows everywhere. Like Filipinos, we're everywhere.
And that's the program. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.